Hello, I'm Derek Wheatley, and welcome to episode 2 of the Wheatley podcast. First of all, I want to thank everyone for listening last week, for subscribing and sharing and everything else that you did. We're very humbled by it. We're amazed by the support that has come back to us. When people take the time out, like I said last week, to listen to you talk for an hour about mental health problems, it's pretty cool, so we want to thank everyone for that. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, maybe go back and listen to the first one, because some of the stuff that comes up in this one is definitely linked with the first one, and there's going to be some common threads between what I talk about with the anxiety and the depression and things like that. So go back and have a listen to the first one if you can, or if you have the time. There was a couple of things I mentioned at the end of the last episode about what we were going to cover in this one. I kind of thought about the one where about alternative therapies, the worldwide ones, and I think maybe I should bring someone in to talk about that rather than me just having my kind of say in it, because obviously I've read up on bits and pieces from different magazines and online of the world, the therapies around the world and stuff. So I'm not, I'm no expert on this, so maybe we should try and get someone in for that. So what I wanted to talk about, really want to break it down in different sections, is talk about the anxiety, talk about depression, then talk about the medication I'm on, and follow that up with things that I've done to maybe learn how to deal with the anxiety and things like that. So that'll come last in the episode. This will be the last episode I do on my own for a while anyway. I'm going to have a guest on from next week, so it'll be quite interesting to see how I can manage to interview people. It's going to be very odd, and hopefully I'll just be able to go with the flow and let them talk, because I'm sure, as nice as you all are, you don't want to listen to me every week talk about myself and anxiety and things like that. So first of all, we'll touch on anxiety. I had a conversation with my mother a couple of years ago. She asked me, we're just having a conversation about mental health and things, and she asked me if I could get rid of either or, the bipolar disorder or the anxiety, which would it be? And for me, it'd always be anxiety. Anxiety is one of those things that sits with you so much. Even if you're sitting at home, there's always something on your mind. You're always looking into the future about what's going to happen, like if you have kids, you're worried about your kids, or if you're, someone's sick that belongs to you. It's never ending anyway, in general worry for people. But someone who's being diagnosed with having an anxiety disorder, that's, so much more difficult. On top of it, I have a history of panic attacks that could happen anywhere, really. I've been in shops where I've just left baskets behind, just walked straight out. I've always seemed to have chosen the flight response over the fight, and I don't know if that's such a bad thing, to be honest with you. Some things just aren't worth getting unwell about, getting a headache about, getting a sick stomach about, things like that. The attacks are part of the course, and the attacks are something that you have to learn to deal with. I learned through CBT and things like that, where I learned that I could conquer the attack. I could see it coming, and then I could get kind of battle against it and overcome it with some easy steps. Like there's things like breathing techniques that I was shown how to do, and you think, oh yeah, sure, they'll work, like when you're in the middle of an absolute crisis and in the frozen food section in Dunn's or something, that does work though. If you implement them properly, they absolutely work. And I found the anxiety attacks, they obviously still come all the time, Like even this weekend, just use this for an example. There was, the storm, Kira. There was like turned out to be a bit of a storm, Mary Lou as well. But I was supposed to go and vote, and I didn't vote in the last election, and that's my decision, that's my choice. But like as far as anxiety goes, like I was just feeling a bit anxious this weekend, and I couldn't leave the house, couldn't go for a cycle and things like that because the weather just wasn't safe enough, and it just felt it creeping into me, a little bit of a depressive episode, a bit of an anxiety, an anxious episode, and of course I have learned to deal with it over time, but sometimes it's quite hard, especially when you're isolated and you don't feel like talking about these things sometimes, and that's I'd encourage everyone to talk, but sometimes you just don't want to, and those days can be quite long and very hard. This weekend is just one of those things where I got stuck in, but there's been other days and weekends and where I've missed events, I've missed concerts, I've missed loads and loads of things through just having a really, really horrible time. And I paid for tickets and I never got to go. I let people down. Financially, I let people down. I was supposed to go to London with my dad. This was pre diagnosis. I was supposed to go to a concert with a friend, and a couple of times I was supposed to go with my mum, and then I went to the last two I went to, like, I was Peter Gabriel. I was lying on the couch up in Dublin, mum's place, and she just thought to herself, she told me afterwards, she just thought to herself that I wasn't going to go. I wasn't going to be able for it, but I made it, and once you're in there, you're in. Then Radiohead, which was 2017, I said this is the last concert I'll ever go to. I still haven't gone to one since, but I remember we were waiting for a taxi outside my mum's apartment block, and I just had to go around the corner and vomit. I was that sick that I just it was actually, that was like a almost like a panic attack that just stayed there, at the peak for about 20-25 minutes. And I remember the taxi in, it was slow, there was some protests going on in the city, and the thing is, when you get there, like my mum just said, right, you stand there, I'll just have a wander around, that'd be grand. I was listening to it, the music completely drew me in for 2 hours. But once you're out, like, you're back in the crowds, you're back crossing the bridge, get a taxi, and it's not until you get in that taxi where everything just kind of settles. And when I have let my mum down about not going to Dublin and not going to concerts or whatever, I have had the what's the word that you use? It's like she has an amazing way to respond to it, in the sense where she say, look, don't worry about it, you'll do it again, it doesn't have to be this weekend, and that is just the biggest weight off your mind. It feels like a literal weight. Your whole body, everything about it just kind of just chills, and it's really quite nice for someone to turn around and say, look, everything's going to be all right. Like, I've been at events and things where I've just not really been there at all. I was at my brother's and his girlfriend's now wife, they're going away when they were going to Australia a few years ago, and I just spent the time out in the car park in the rain because it was just the pub was too full and music too loud, and even though I knew people in there who I'd be able to sit beside and chat with, it just felt like too much at the time. There was also a time when at their wedding, I think it was, their wedding, I had to leave like 10:15 or something. There was just too much. I was mentally exhausted. Just anxiety had me for the whole day. I was traveling down to Cork and things like that, where it's just exhausting day. I'm glad I got to that time without too much fuss, without cribbing to someone, and then I just had to go walk up the beautiful place, but walk away from the building where it was and up through the forest to get back to bed and just sleep. I remember even at my grandmother's funeral a few years ago, like 2017, we just had to, I was upstairs in my grandfather's like kind of office, and my sister-in-law was bringing up tea and cake and stuff to me because I couldn't be down with the people. There's too many people down there for me, so it was very difficult, and that's all fight response. Apart from the wedding, which was, that were all flight responses. The wedding was kind of a fight until the end, where I just had nothing left in me. And the depression side of it is just as crippling, people talk about staying in bed, and I get that, like why they want to stay in bed, why their energy is so low and their care for things is so low that they just don't want to leave. They want to just stay there in their little cocoon and just be, I never had the problem of staying in bed. I'm very much a routine person, and I get up at 5:45 every day. It used to be 9, and it kept going back. Now I'm like, I get out and run even if I just really don't want to. I go out and I do it. I try and, keeping a steady schedule and a routine, like I said last week, is positive and negative. It has its positives and its negatives, so I kind of try and take the positives from it. The negatives can affect relationships quite a lot, unfortunately, but the positives are certainly things like something that will get me out and drive me to get up early and go for a run or go train or whatever it is. The bipolar then is another situation where I do have a lot of lows, far more lows than I do highs. I trust the lows more. I'm more comfortable in the lows. The highs are much more frightening to me. I think with bipolar 2, like, you get the lows are more common, and they also, to me, seem like you can. It is quite hard to describe, to be fair, but because I suppose it's like something you're more used to. So you're more used to the lows. You can kind of delve into that box of tricks of how you deal with your lows, whether it's through watching 3 or 4 films a day, whether it's trying to read, which is something that's quite hard when you're quite down. You won't remember a lot of stuff. Whatever it is you do, even if it's listen to music, play guitar, doesn't matter. If you can use those things to counteract those feelings of a low mood, that's a start. My problem on the other end of the scale is with the high moods. Now, with the high moods, it's very much for me, it's very much a battle of staying. I wouldn't say staying away from people, but definitely trying to limit the amount of times I spend with people. So still try and do your bit of training or whatever it is you do, but don't. I suppose don't go into places that you're not used to when you're on those kind of highs. My mind goes, it just wanders. It just goes. It travels. My mouth never stops. I never stop talking. A lot of it can be fairly, not much of a thread narratively speaking. So you'd be talking, but there's very little stitching together between the sentences. You can be talking about the Beatles 1 minute, and you can be talking about fucking ploughing championship the next. Something, but that they can happen without any link, so it'll just flow in one into the other. You can find yourself just this kind of, as the high suggests, this kind of a trip that you're on, and there's this kind of feeling in your shoulders that you'll hold your shoulders high and your head high, and it's a different feeling, but it's not, for me, it's not a nice feeling. For some, which I've read about, which for bipolar 1, it's quite nice. They can be quite creative during that time. They find it's such an amazing break from the energy or lack of energy from a low. So I kind of get that why they might wish that to come on. For me, it's there's no competition. I much prefer to sit in the lows. It just seems to me that suits me a little bit more. You can probably hear the wind on the roof there, or else maybe not, because I can still hear that water tank, and it really annoyed me. But a lot of people said that they couldn't hear it last week. Again, that's a callback, so if you want to hear me giving out about a water tank, and have a listen to the first episode. Another thing, medication, which is it's a big thing for people. I understand that people don't want to take medication. They don't like medication. Maybe they don't, don't trust it, how it might work with their way of thinking. It might change them. For me, I had no idea what was going on. I wasn't really fully aware. I wasn't very aware at all of where my mind was going to go. So them prescribing me with medication to begin with, it seemed like, I hope this is a quick fix kind of thing. And it wasn't, obviously, but I definitely, in my mind, hoped that that's what it was going to be. A couple of people asked me after last week's show about why did the doctors why was their first go-to area medication? I don't know the answer to that, and hopefully I can get someone on who will be able to answer that better than I would. I wonder if it's to do with the mental health sector in Ireland at the moment, and even at the time 10 years ago. The people working in there are doing their very best, and some of them are amazing people who have helped me along the way. But on the other side of the coin, there's not enough people in there, and the numbers of people going in to be treated for mental health difficulties is growing. So, is the correct thing to go straight to medication? Maybe not. But what else are you supposed to do? You're supposed to leave the patient 3 months on nothing, with no hope of getting better, and just having to put up with it until they get the call. Because it does. I've been in there in that in the system, and it took a long time to get certain appointments. Not all appointments, but certain appointments. It took a long time. So maybe that's the reason. As I said, I don't really know. The medication that I'm on, I started with like the Lexapro, like I said last week, which was the base antidepressant. I did go on to something else which I cannot remember the name of now, but it didn't seem to work. So what I ended up in the Cymbalta, which is my base antidepressant. I also take Xanax, which I said last week, for anxiety. I take Lyrica for anxiety, which was first brought out, I think, for people who had suffered strokes, and it was to aid their nerves. And then, not long before I started going on it, it became used for anxiety in general. I then went on Priadel, which is lithium. I remember when I went on it first, all I knew about lithium was the Nirvana song, to be honest, at the time. And I remember going around to get my subscription and listen to lithium in a kind of, a bit of dark humor, but it was just, you deal with things differently, don't you? Everybody does. And then I'm also on Seroquel, which is kind of antidepressant, anti-anxiety. Kind of used to be on 3 of them, on 2 of them now. They're kind of heavy duty. I was also put on mirtazapine, I think I'm pronouncing that right, which I didn't really like. It gave me kind of a woolly headed feeling sometimes. It gave me the feeling of my tongue being too big in my mouth, which was quite strange. So I used to slur quite a bit. And obviously, you don't want to be going around slurring. People think you were out, drunk, or getting drunk in the morning or something, like, So I think when we were on 45 milligrams, we dropped down to 30 milligrams, and we cut it out completely. And I'm really happy, because that tiredness and fatigue and stuff was it's definitely improved since then. I did have an appointment, my history of therapy. I was going to Westmeath, the hospital at Lone, to be dealt with for my therapy, and we had a psychiatrist who used to treat me every 2 months. He used to talk to me, and we used to run through the usual stuff about sleep and eating and things like that. Then I'd be running to a psychologist who, like I said last week, Fiona, was great. But I ran out of patience a little bit with it. I was a bit petulant about it, I think, and they asked me to come in for an appointment after I told them I wouldn't go anymore. So I just couldn't. I just thought confrontation wasn't exactly right for me. So my mum went into the meeting, and before she went in, I asked her to asked them about ECT, electric convulsive therapy. Most people probably know it from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where Jack Nicholson's getting blasted in the head with the volts, and it's not as grim as that now. It's definitely cleaned up a bit on that, but ultimately they said I wasn't an ideal candidate for it. They said my memory would fade or be affected, and that that excuse me, that as a creative person, I write stories and things like that. As a creative person, it would definitely cause a problem. Wipe some of that out, and when I took those two things into account, I kind of thought, okay, well, I'm probably not going to be doing that. And I was excited about doing it because I just didn't want to, like the drink from last week I was talking about. I just didn't want to be myself anymore. So if that could give me 5 lessons that I could turn things around, it'd be amazing, But it wasn't to be. They didn't think I was the one for it. So I kind of had to put up with it. So I started going into, it wasn't too long after that, I started going into the Roscommon mental health facility, and it was the same deal, 2 months, 3 months, each appointment. I remember one therapist looked at the clock, and that really set me off. Now, I had the same guy checking, I don't know if he's a psychiatrist or what he is, but again, he was just running through the basics of what I was eating, like I was exercising, things like that. We used to talk about running because he was a big runner. So he set me in, and they're just sitting face to face, this guy. So the clock's to my left on the wall, his right, and he just looked straight at it, and I was just so disappointed. I thought, oh, I'm just keeping it up now, and it just kind of shut down completely. So it's not that it makes me sound kind of, a little bit petty and stuff, but when you're in that frame of mind and you need someone to listen to you, you don't want them tapping on a computer or looking at a clock, or you want them to be actually paying attention, looking at you. So that put me off that guy. I never had him again. But I will tell you, the last time I went in, which was again a couple of years ago, as I'm not under treatment at the moment, I'm just winging it a bit. But the last time I went in, it's a long corridor. Okay, so I was sitting on the bench by the door, and it was very warm in there, and I keep my jacket on a lot because I feel it as a kind of a protective shell, which it sounds kind of silly, but it's just one of those things. So I'm sitting there, and there's as I said, it's very warm. There's a lot of people down the other end of the corridor, and there's someone down there, and they've got an iPad, and they're blasting Mariah Carey out. Now, I nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with Mariah Carey if you're into her, But she was the last person I wanted to hear blasting out, like when I was waiting for my next appointment. But you see, the thing is, that person's way of dealing with their trip to the appointment could be blaring up Mariah Carey. Who's for me to say that that's not the way you should do it? I didn't have any ways of dealing with it, and that's why this is what happened. I was sitting there. It was warm, the music was blaring, I just got up and left. Now, that is the worst thing you can do, really, because I got up and I walked out the door without saying anything. So straight away, they come out looking for me whenever it was, 20 minutes later, I'm not there. Panic is going to set in. I'm sure they've seen it before. I literally went around the corner for lunch, but my phone was ringing, it was them, I didn't answer, I was too nervous to answer then, and we got home, there was a voice message, and it was like, leave us a message if you've got this, and there was a certain element of panic, and I caused that by being selfish and just leaving, just heading out the door. It kind of childish, really. It's not something I'm very proud of, but I haven't gone back. But I will say I have talked to him since, the guy in the front of house, and he did say, turned around and said to me, you can come back anytime you need to, and fair play for that, because I was a bit of a brat, really, for doing what I did. So that was the end. So now I'm kind of, my therapy is my training and things like that, but I do know that maybe one day down the road I'll have to go back again. Now a word from our sponsors. Fusion Training Centre, Monksland, Athlone. A place to train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kickboxing, martial arts and CrossFit. A great atmosphere with experienced coaches and a real sense of community. If you wish to join the team, find us on Facebook at Fusion Training Centre or drop in for a chat. Fusion Training Centre. Train like a warrior. So, I suppose the next section is kind of the shoots of recovery. Okay? So, what I had to find in my life was a way to get around the anxiety. To live with it, but still be able to enjoy things the way people can enjoy life in general without the stress. I had to find a way to accept anxiety, accept depression, bring them into they were part of my life, so I had to mold everything else kind of around them, or them around my life, one way or the other. It was part of it. I had to accept it, and I had to talk about it. My first real way of doing that was writing a novel, and I hadn't written fiction before. I think I wrote one short story. I'd written a couple of essays, but I'd never written fiction. And sitting down to write it, not many people read it, to be honest. But now when I look back, and I mean, it's basically my life. So much of it, so much of my experiences as someone who's had a novel. Well, it's hard to explain, because what I was doing was I was writing about myself, but I was trying to disguise everything else as to not be about myself, so people wouldn't immediately go, "Oh, that's you," because my mom would know, or my dad would know, because they both read it. But other people, I didn't want them to know necessarily that it was about me. The thing was, and I gave it to a friend of mine, and she gave it to a friend of hers. That girl texted me and was like, "Is this story true? This about you?" And I was kind of like, I could have lied, obviously, but what was the point in that? So I said, "Yeah, it is." And I met up with her for a coffee after that, and she had some issues of her own, and she'd never spoken about them. So it was kind of felt like that was a breakthrough, and that I was revealing myself, but I wasn't. I was to my close family, but it wasn't to other people, because again, it was fiction. It was set in a fictional town. It wasn't like it was in Athlone or anything. So I started to get into a groove of writing, and I was writing short stories, and some based around mental health, some based around something completely different. It didn't really always have to be about that. It could be about other things, because I wasn't just about that. I wasn't just the guy with the depression and anxiety that lives down the street. I didn't want to be one of those people. I always thought that things would be different. That there'd be I guess the way when you're young and you see the guy with the big car, and or the woman with the big car, whatever, and they have the perfect spouse, a couple of kids, you're kind of like, "Oh, that'd be cool when I get to that point." You never see the guy who lives on his own, and who drives a small car, and he's a little bit disheveled. You never look at that guy and think, "God, it wouldn't be him one day." That's never the plan. But you can't make plans like that. Not those long-term plans. You just can't make them. So I was living in the moment at the time, but very much thinking that maybe, my time was kind of up for as far as socializing goes and things. Because I tried to remain out there, but it was quite difficult, as you can imagine. So these were wordy things. I was getting something from writing, It was a sense of purpose. It was a sense of getting up and start writing after you run, and I wasn't setting any quotas or anything. I was just writing until I got bored and I stopped. That's all it was, and I enjoyed it. And then 2 years ago, maybe I might be a bit less, I started a blog. I think I just wanted to straighten out some things, because a lot of people knew at this stage that I was well, especially that I had anxiety. I don't know about the depression and the bipolar. I don't know if that was the case. I can't remember, but I know that people had the idea that I was an anxious person, because I would tell a lot of people, you know. It was no problem to me. So I started the blog, and you know, a couple of people came up and said, "Oh, it's really good," and I was like, "Oh, geez," you know, I was kind of surprised that people had taken time to read it. I just wanted it almost to get it on the page, you know. It was good. So I just people kept coming up to me, even people who never talked to me before would say, "Listen, sometimes I get like this," and you know, I'm not an expert on anything. The only thing that I'm close to being an expert on, and an expert's too big of a word, would be the Beatles. That expert's too big of a word though, but I know a lot about them. So but that's neither here nor there. But the blog was definitely an outlet for me, and when other people started to like it and people gave me some feedback on it, it was fantastic. Like, it was amazing. So I wrote maybe 20-25 pieces. This is where this came in. Then was the idea to do you know, a podcast that would be about mental health, but not just about mental health. I wanted people to come on and just have a bit of crack and stuff. So we got to hear off the back of the blog, but I think the blog definitely helped. It definitely showed me the need for something like this, and it definitely showed me that it's out there. You know, we just gotta, you know, band together, pull it together, set up, you know, blogs if you want, podcasts, whatever it is, and just chat. Like, it's good. It'll be good for the heart and the head, you know. I started, you know, besides writing, I started with physical exercise. So, like I said last week, I had to start cycling because I live about 8 or 9 kilometers outside the town, and I have to cycle in and out. Cycling, you know, it's grand. It does the job. It was never something I got a buzz off. It's never something I kind of like, let's do this, you know, jump up on the bike and fly into town. I just got up and made my way at a proper rate in, or whether it's train or whatever. Then I started to swim. Now, swimming is, you know, really good for the full body, but it wasn't filling me with endorphins or anything. It was nice. That's the best way to describe it. No more than that. You know, and I used to count out the laps. I'd do start at 20 and I'd end up doing 100, and then I was like, I have to do 100. I just have to. I can't not do 100 now. So it's, again, this slight trace of OCD slipping in again. So I was out here in the country, and I thought, well, I might go for a run. Now, I'd never run before in my life, except in football, you know, but never just as just something running, not after something, not away from something, just running. So I started doing that, and I maybe did 3 kilometers first, and I was killed, and I was like thinking, I'm fit, and I was obviously not fit enough for running. And my muscles are killing me, all these certain muscles, and I was like, oh god, this is awful. But I did 2 days later. I got up and did 3 again. We ended up in 5. We got to 10, that was a big accomplishment when I got to 10, because it always seemed like, you know, people were running charity events. It'd always be 10 kilometers, whereas I'd be running the 10, 15, and then to 20, and to get to 20 is, you know, for me it was quite an achievement. It's almost half a marathon. I was thrilled. I got home, I put on the, you know, cold t-shirt, and put on I can't remember what I was wearing, but I remember just buzzing off it. Like, it's one of those highs, you know, that it's free and healthy, and where else can you get those highs from? You know, you can't get them from anything else really, where it's just you're bouncing around for the day. You got that run in, you've had some food, so, you know, you have some food, you maybe just chill out and, you know, nod off in front of the film or something, and it's such a beautiful feeling, that feeling that you get from running, and there's nothing like it. And I'd definitely advise people to give it a go if they are having some mental health problems. That there's nothing better than a good run. So my good friend Shane, who we'd meet up every week for tea and coffee, you know, he started talking to me about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I had no idea what it was, no idea. So as far as benefits go, he would tell me all the time about this and that, and he'd show me some stuff on YouTube, and I was still, still a bit skeptical, I suppose. I don't really know how I felt about anything like that. I especially wasn't fond of people touching me that often, where they grab and hold you, and that's what it's all about. Jiu-jitsu, it just seems to be that. So he was talking about, he was training out in Tullamore. He said to me, you should give it a go. There's one there in Athlone called Fusion, another ad for it. There's one there in Athlone, and his daughter was training there at the time. So I said, I'll think about it. And I think I left 3 or 4 weeks after that, and eventually in I went. Now, I'd called Martin the day before. I didn't know Martin at the time. And I asked him, or I told him that about the depression, or the bipolar and anxiety. And he was grand, don't worry about that. Very, very accommodating. Says, come in anyway. So I walk in, right? I'm so nervous. And I'm just wearing jeans and a top, And he says, all right, now you can get changed and leave your shoes there, just leave your shoes aside and jump on the mat. And I was I started panicking, to almost say, I don't know, you said I didn't have to do that. So he was like, oh yeah, that's grand, yeah, you can sit in. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching, a few people on the mats, and Keen comes over to me. Keen is known also as Teggy, Tegggy. You'll get some of his music on Spotify and Apple and YouTube. Have a listen because he's really good. So he came over to me and he kind of said, do you want to give it a go? Do you want to jump in? I was like, absolutely not. No, there's no chance of me jumping in. I'm just going to watch. So he was like, yeah, cool. So maybe half an hour later, Martin came over to me. We had a bit of a chat about anxiety and stuff. And I was like, listen, this seems like a nice place, nice people, good atmosphere. I would come back, pay my membership at the start then, So he was like, oh, yeah, cool, as long as you're sure. So I started to go in there, and it's such an amazing sport. It's so rewarding. It's very difficult, but it's so rewarding in the long run when you start to link some stuff together. I thought it was very fit from the running and the cycling and the swimming and that, but so when I went in there and I realized it's a different fitness. It's completely, you're using all of your body in it, so it's such a hard it's a tough level of fitness, and I was enjoying that side of it. But you're throwing, moving someone's body weight, it takes a lot out of you, so you'd always leave there shattered, but you're after killing each other on the mat, and then straight away you're laughing and joking when you're getting changed. It's such a good positive vibe from the place. And then I started doing the CrossFit, and to me CrossFit was another challenge. It was very, I think I was more nervous with the CrossFit than I was with the Jiu-Jitsu, actually. The reason being, right, things like weights were very daunting to me. The bar, grabbing a bar and lifting over your head, it's just daunting. I don't have upper body strength. I'm fine with leg. My legs are great, but my upper body strength is terrible. So when I have to do a pull up or a push up, it's tough. But when you give me a weight, and you don't even think about the techniques of lifting. Why would you? You just think, I'll just lift this. Obviously, when we learn training manual courses, you just there's a way of doing it, you just do it. But it's different with bars. You have to be so precise because of the weights that you're putting on. And you're also looking around you, and you're looking at people who are maybe smaller than you, and they're lifting way more than you, and you start getting competitive in your head. And it's silly. It's not about that. There's a good camaraderie in there where someone's going for their personal best, there's a clap, people are delighted for them. That's how it should be. It shouldn't be like a competition. So at the time when I started doing it, that's what it felt like me. I was being uncharacteristically competitive. I'm not like that at all, but I felt like that when I was in there. So I took a break from there for a few months, and I went back then maybe 5 or 6 months ago, and I'm completely different in there now. I mean, I'll lift what I want to lift. I'll try everything that Martin or Katrina or James suggests, but I do know my limit, and I'm not going to go over that for anyone. There's no need, there's no need to do that. So I even in the WAS where you have to do cardio and stuff, there's no point in racing against someone else. Like, most of the time, that person's not even looking at you. They don't care. So you're really just pushing yourself, which is to some people's fine, but there's other ways of doing that. It's not the best way. So the best thing I've done in a long time is join there, because the staff and my fitness is amazing now. Well, maybe not amazing, that might be over the top, but I learned a new skill all the time, whether it's lifting or jiu-jitsu, and self-confidence is such a big thing. It's a massive thing in your life, and I've never had such high self-confidence before. It's practically on the roof of jumping up. That is worth it alone. That's worth the days, worrying, because I still do. I'd be at home here at 6 o'clock in the evening, knowing I have to go in for 8, and I'd just be anxious about who'd be in there, or something, making up scenarios, anxious future scenarios that may never work, and there's no need for it. You don't have to do that. So if you do have the time or if you do have the want to sign up to a gym, mostly in Fusion, or jiu-jitsu or something like that, test yourself and go out of your comfort zone, because I think I'd find, if I didn't push myself out of those things, I'd be so further back now than I am. I'd be, it wouldn't even be close. So if you can't train, if you've got injuries or whatever, what do you do to stop yourself from worrying? Like, what's your go-to thing? Because we've all got something, and I think that some of us lose sight of that a little bit. Some of us forget that we had that. If you're in the middle of a serious, depressive episode, it's quite easy to forget the things that you love to do. It's quite easy not to love them when you're in that zone, but at the same time, where do you replace it, and what do you replace it with? I think you can still go with what you love, and I think it's okay to, if you take, for example, the films that I love, and I can go back to and I can watch. You think you watched them any time, but if you're feeling terrible and you're like, the last thing on your mind is watching a film, go back to it anyway. Like, what's it going to, there's going to be no problems with it. It is better than sitting there in silence with your own thoughts, no matter how you feel. If you're hugely into music, or even you've played an instrument and you think, I can't be bothered playing an instrument, just pick it up and just do what you normally do. Play what you normally play. Even if it's just listening to music, do that. There's this, I always find it funny, and I do it as well, when you're down, or even if someone's just broken up with you, whatever it is, you sit at home and you listen to, like, the Smiths. You sit at home and listen to those saddest tunes you can find. You're like, oh, this was our song. Why not stick on Girls Just Want to Have Fun, or something that's so upbeat that you just can't help but, like, get stuck in. Raspberry Beret or something. Just bouncing around. Change the course of your mind. Change the thought process that you have. We see this in films all the time. People go and listen to saddest music when they're upset or heartbroken. Don't do that. You don't have to do that. Like, I'll sit down and watch. You think that you'd sit down and watch a silly comedy like Dumb and Dumber, when you're feeling like crap. Why not? Like, you could, like, if you're happy sitting down and watching a bummer of a film, and you're feeling down, if that's your thing and that's what you want to be, you should absolutely do that. But be the guy who blows your mind. Be the guy who's. You don't have to be positive all the time. I'm not saying that. That is an exhausting thing to be, I would imagine. But I certainly think that you can do your thing. You do, go home. If you're really down or you haven't got out of bed, put on some music, but it doesn't have to be the saddest music you own. Nobody's going to judge you if you're really down and you're listening to some happy, like, peach, whatever it is. Something to you that if you were in a good mood, you would put on. Do the same thing if you're in a bad mood. That's what I do. That's what I try to do. I don't do it so much with music now, I have to say. I'm still listening to, like, Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now, things like that. But I try with films. If I'm feeling a bit bad and feeling a bit down, I try and bring out I wouldn't say silly stuff, because my taste in music my taste in films, it can be quite heavy. I don't. People know me well enough. Who know me well enough will know that it's not there's no real Marvel or DC in my house, to be fair. It's a DVD collection, but I would happily put on a drama or something heavy anytime. But sometimes it's not a bad thing to just change it up a little bit. And if you are feeling really down, really upset, just throw on a little bit, something a bit lighter. Might help. It's a small, very small tip that might help. I read a lot of books, and I understand that books are quite hard. You're a much harder thing to get into when you are really feeling it, particularly anxiety, I would say, because you cannot concentrate on the words. You're just concentrating on what you have to do tomorrow. Like, it could be just a small thing, could be a big thing, but that's what you're concentrating on. You will not retain the information on the page. You'll have to go back, flick back and forth. That is quite difficult, and I don't have any tips for that. Like, if I'm reading a good book and I want to retain those pages and remember everything in the book, I will make sure that book will not be read again until I feel better. That's as far as reading goes. It is a difficult thing to do. I play a bit of music sometimes if I'm in the humour, play a bit of guitar or whatever, and just kind of come out with chords. That the song that's on the start and the end of these podcasts is a song that I wrote maybe 15 years ago, and there is lyrics and everything, but it was just one of those things you just picked up and I just played, and it was just the chords came together all at once. These things happen, these things are you just might write something. Be creative, try and write something. Try and find. I know I'm rambling here for the last 10 minutes, but I'm trying to piece together some things that I should have written down beforehand. But try and find that person who will listen to you. Everybody has that person. I'm very lucky. I've got 3 or 4, and it's amazing to me. There is nothing better than that person who can. They can take all of the information you told them. They may have never had depression or anxiety before, but they can take all that information that you told them, and they can turn it into something completely different. And you can see that silver lining as such. They have that much empathy in them that they're able to do that. I'm lucky to have my mom for everything. Look, my relationship with my dad is obviously different, but I know when he turns around to me and he says, like, how are you feeling at the moment? Then it's time to talk. And if I need to get something at the open, I will. And I know he'll listen to me. I have my buddy Josh, who I only know a bit more than 2 years. We met in Fusion, and we have each other's back, and we chat like most days. And he's just, we help with each other's problems, I suppose. And it's great to have him. Like, so I've been lucky, but I can guarantee you, if you look hard enough in your life, that you will find someone that is going to be able to help you, who's going to be able to sit down and talk with you at any time, or read your text or whatever it is, get back to you and be there for you. It may be the person you the least expected, So just try and find it. Just try and question yourself and question, who do I think that'll be, and just talk to them. Okay, so before we wrap it up, I want to say, when I say about the podcast, I say we all the time. I mean me and John Francis, who is my partner in crime on this podcast. I know my name is on and I'm the one doing the talking, but it really is 50-50 stuff. Like, he's doing so much work that I couldn't possibly do. I'm very grateful to have him as my partner on this. I'd like to thank Ger Lynch for that logo. I love it actually. The more I see it, I think it's very, very cool. I want to thank my mother, my father, and my grandfather as always. If you want to stay in touch with us, excuse me. If you want to stay in touch with us, there's a few ways. Please check out our YouTube channel. Which, if you're not into the big, into the whole podcast thing, you might want to watch or listen, I should say, on YouTube. It's the Weekly Wheatley. Please subscribe to that as well. That's a pretty cool way of showing your support. Also, if you could, if you want to leave a comment, if you have any suggestions anywhere, leave them. It doesn't matter where. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it is. We are on Twitter at Wheatley _the. You'll probably find it under the Weekly Wheatley as well, I think. I'm not too sure. But it's definitely on Wheatley _the. We have Instagram, Wheatley the Weekly. So they've swapped it around there. So it's Wheatley the Weekly. The current podcast platforms are Spotify, Apple, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Podbean, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and Overcast. I think that's them all at the moment. I'd like to get on SoundCloud because apparently a few people do use that platform, but we'll see how we get on with that. That's probably like enough to go for now. One last thing, if you do know anybody that you think would be a good fit to come on here and chat, be they non-professional people who have had, mental health problems, people who haven't, it doesn't matter, I know it's mental health podcast, but we like to have a bit of fun as well. Also, if you know any professionals within, like any therapist, if it's CBT, occupational, whatever it is, psychologist, it'd be great to have them on the chat, because this is all about helping people, and that in turn help me, and everybody's getting something out of it then. So if you could, please send us on some suggestions. That's it for this week. We are very grateful for having you listen again. Thank you so much. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon.